Hello, welcome to this lecture video. So today we are going to talk about one freeware or one software called the PSPP. So PSPP is a statistical analysis tool developed to be a free open source alternative to SPSS. So SPSS, if you are familiar with the software, it stands for a statistical package for the social sciences, and it is developed by IBM. So although PSPP and SPSS are not identical, it is similar in many aspects, and it allows one to work with file format common to SPSS. So using SPSS, or rather PSPP, PSPP does not limit the number of cases or variables which you are able to use. So these variables are the variables later that you're going to gather. It is about your respondents of the study. So it could be the age of your respondents, sex of your respondents, and all other variables. So it will not rather require you to purchase add-ons to gain access to more advanced functions. So as a fully functional statistical analysis program, it is capable of performing descriptive statistics, linear regressions, parametric and non-parametric tests. It included in its basic design, and it performs analysis as quickly as possible regardless of the volume of the data entered. So in addition, you have the option of using the program through its graphical user interface, the GUI, or through the more traditional method of utilizing syntax command. So in this video, we are going to install PSPP. So PSPP has no corresponding meaning, but obviously, as we can see it compared with SPSS, it is just an interchange of S and P. So we are going to install, as mentioned, the PSPP, and just to give a brief background on how to use it. So I already downloaded the PSPP. So this is the PSPP. So what will we do with this? So to install this, so you can just double click your PSPP, and you can find here informations that talks about the PSPP. So you can browse this and read this, and then click next. And then locate, or you can place now, you can change the location of your PSPP. So by clicking the browse, or by default, it is placed in the program file. So you just need to click install, and then there you go. You just have to wait to be installed. So after that, so it is extracting. So as we can see here, our PSPP is being installed in the computer. So when it's already complete, then all you need to do is to close the PSPP. Okay, so I have here with me the software. So where is it? In my desktop. So here we have here the PSPP. So what you need to do is to click this. And there you go. So this is now the data editor. So it is where we are going to encode our data later after gathering it. So we have two sheets under this, the data view and the variable view. So in the variable view, for example, you will you have your, they call this, you have your instrument, and in your instrument, you ask for the age of the students. You also ask for the sex of the students, or it depends on your data. You ask them for their social civil civil status, socioeconomic status. So we can now just use acronyms for naming it. So what if we are going to place spaces? So let us see. So for example, civil status. So as you can see here, it did not accept the civil status. So you cannot encode your data with space. So if you want, civil underscore status. So if you want, you can change the space into underscore. If you're going to delete for the variable, so since we have a double entry for civil status, CS also means civil status, and I will delete this. So just click the number of civil status, that's number 5, right click and clear variables. So for example, we are just concerned with regards to the age, sex, civil status, and socioeconomic status of the respondent. So we are doing a profile. And the next column here is the type. So the type is numeric if the data that we will enter is number. And if we double click this, so we can find here variable type and format. So it will give us numeric, comma, dot, scientific notation, date, dollar, custom currency, and string. But the more common use, or the most common use rather, is numeric and string. So there are also times that we want to place the name, and the name is string because we are going to include other characters aside from numbers. So if we will include now the name, so that means that the letter, that the data that we're going to enter will be letters. So we are going to use string. So it is also important to use a string and to place the name of your respondents in case that the respondents gave their name, because it's not optional in your questionnaire. Because in case that you commit error, for example, or you miss some cells in the data set, then you can just go back to your respondent and ask that respondents regarding his or her answer. So we can click now numeric, because as much as possible when we are dealing with quantitative analysis later, we have to make sure that all our data can be written in numbers. So if not, if it is, for instance, it is categorical like sex, it is male and female, it is not numbers, we still need to recode that into numbers and then just give what they call this legend for the assigned numbers. So the width, so we have the word here, width corresponds to the number of characters. And since it is numeric, then it is also possible that it is being measured, so there is a decimal places. So for age, we're not going to include decimal. We are going to get the actual age in terms of years and not with and excluding the decimal. So click. Okay, so it's fine to just use the default 8. Okay, so for the sex, so we are also going to use numeric because we are going to code this. So let's say that we are going to use 1 for male, 2 for female. Also for civil status, so we can actually make or set values like 1 for single, 2 for married, 3 for widowed, 4 for separated, and others. And for socioeconomic status, for example, we just set it into poor, average, and rich. So we can also do that. Or it can be, it is based on the income. It is based on the income of the family. Okay, so we have here decimal. So as mentioned, we do not need decimal. So we can actually set this to 0. So aside from accessing the with and the decimal under numeric, we can also directly change it here. So we have negative and positive on its side. So we can just change, or we can just click the either negative or the positive side. Negative when we want to decrease the number, positive if we want to increase the number. Okay, so we're all set here until decimal. And then next, we have labels. So as I mentioned, when we try to encode civil status with space, the system did not accept it. So as much as possible, again, for us to understand what are the acronyms used in naming our variable, especially if it is a group research wherein you are just assigned to encode and other group mates are assigned to analyze it later, then you have to place the label so that the analyst or the statistician will be guided later on of the meaning of these variables. So just like, for example, for CS, this is civil status. So here, it is already acceptable to place space. Then click enter. So SES is socio-economic status. So what is the meaning of SES? It is socio-economic status. How about if we also start with numbers, like for example, 1 item. So if you notice, it will not again accept the name 1 item. But if I will encode item 1, so it is okay to use item 1, which means again that you cannot start with a number in naming your variable. So it does not mean that you cannot write number or use number, but you cannot just start with a number. So let us delete it. So this is just in case that you prefer to write it as item 1, item 2, again, to be guided with later with your questionnaire, that item 1 corresponds to the item number 1 in your questionnaire. Okay, so we are going to delete this. Click clear variables. So next, what is this value labels? So for age, if you will ask for the actual age, then there's no problem now if what will be the value labels, because the numbers will be encoded and the type is numeric. But for sex, you have to place that the number encoded under the variable sex corresponds to the sex of the students or the sex of the respondents in general. So just like, for example, you set that the variables is, so what did I do? So you have to double click this. And there you go. We have here window asking for the value labels. So 1, this means that if I encode 1, it means that the value label is male. And if I encode 2, the value label is female. So click add. Now, what if you commit mistake in encoding? So it is just easy to edit this. So you can just click or remove, or you can, for example, change and then click apply. So it's up to you whether you want to re-encode it by clicking remove, or if not, just edit it and click apply. Okay, now if you will also ask me, what if I'll use 1 for female and 2 for male? Does it matter? Okay, so actually here, you just have to come up with a common, what do you call this, the codes. For instance, that each of the member of the groups are assigned to encode. And so you have to come up with a common codes, like you're going to use 1 for male and 2 for female. But if you prefer to use 1 for female and 2 for male, it is okay. Anyway, this does not mean that male is higher than female or female is higher than male based on the set, based on the assigned codes to these categories. You can actually use 5 and 6, 7 and 8, because this number just corresponds that the first number is different from another number because the corresponding label is different from another number. So that is just how it works. So it does not matter if you prefer to use any other number as long as you're going to use two different numbers. But of course, for convenience, it is of course easy for you to remember the two consecutive numbers. Okay, then click. Okay, so for civil status, we are going to repeat that procedure. So double click. 1 for single, then click add. 2 for married, click add. Or we can set 3 for others, for separated or for widowed, and for other variables. So click add and click OK. So we have here the value labels. For socioeconomic status, so let's again give values for this one. So 1 correspond to poor, add. 2 corresponds to average, add. 3 corresponds to rich, and click add and click OK. So there we go. So we have now here the value labels for sex, civil status, and socioeconomic status. So how about the next column? So the next column is missing values. So what is this missing values? So for the missing values, in case that some of the respondents did not, what do you call this, did not place anything in the questionnaire or did not respond to the questionnaire, so they miss some of the items, so we can actually use the missing values. But it is also okay that if it is missing value, then just leave that cells blank, or if not, then you can also assign values. So it is also okay to assign values. So if you double click this, like for example, for 6, so you can discrete missing value. So you can set numbers here that corresponds to the missing value. So the concept is the same with value label. So you are just giving a number, like for example, number 0. If you encoded 0, it means it is missing value. So there is a need to place it here and not just to place it later in value labels, because when you analyze and it is missing value and it is not placed here, the software will count it as there is still answer. So if for example, you will compute for the average, it will still compute for the average, including that 0. And we know that when we add 0 and we are computing for the average, it can pull down or it can decrease the average. So that's a one, what do you call this? One consequence of not placing the value set in the missing data. Or if not, as mentioned, if you do not want to complicate things, then just leave missing values blank. And in encoding, there's no need to place also anything, just leave it blank. Okay, so for the columns, this is just the size of our columns. So let us see. So if you notice here, this is the size. And if I'll change this, for example, to 15. Let us just see how will it affects this. Or maybe let's set to a smaller value. So if you notice, we have a smaller column, length of width rather of our column. So if I'll try to increase this and go back to variable view, if you notice, so it increases. So it is the width of our column. So anyway, we can just set it to default. And then for the alignment, so similar to how it is used in Microsoft Word, so this refers to either left align, right align, center align. So it does not actually affect the analysis later. But just to show you, if it is left, let us change the values here, right? And for the last one, center, and I'll place an entry here. So age 16. So it is in our left side. Sex female, we use 1 and 2. So the respondent is male, 1. Civil status is single, 1. Okay, so if you notice here, we have left, right, and. Okay, so how about our civil status? So let us see what is set in our civil. Okay, so it's not yet entered or not yet confirmed. That's why it's not. Okay, 1, for example, 2. So let's go back here. So alignment is center. So let us see. So left, right. So we cannot actually see the difference of the left and the center. So it seems similar. But anyway, the idea here is that it does not affect the analysis later on. So this is how to encode our data. So you have first to place or to encode the data in the variables that you need in the variable view, and then encode it in the data view. So we are going to talk more about this in a separate video. So thank you for watching.